Okay, good morning, students. Today I'm going to discuss basically normal flora of the human body. And in the last lecture, we discussed about the basics of the normal flora and what are the variations in the normal flora from the start of our life to the senescence stage of our life. Okay, today I'm going to discuss which normal flora is present at which organs or part of the body. Okay, now the diagram given here is basically a symbiotic association diagram, okay, of the any case, not just a in the case of normal flora. Okay, oral symbiosis, the diagram in which given here is basically commensalism, mutualism and parasitism. In your semester 4 of microbiology, you must have studied these terms. Okay, so this term same applies with the normal flora also. Okay, so symbiotic relationships, okay, in which a commensalism, basically it helps for the shelter, it helps of the food, shelter and the food, as well as it helps the host to get rid of the product which is being produced by the host also. Okay, so in this scenario here, how normal flora are basically going to help. Now starting with the commensalism, normal flora, basically there are some normal flora which are also termed as commensals, and these commensals are basically those bacteria which are not going to help us, okay, which are not going to help us, but they are also not going to cause disease also. They are also not going to cause a disease also. In the case of mutualism, the second concept, where both are benefit, okay, for example in our gut microbial flora, where the normal flora gets the shelter and food, and in return to the host, this provides resistance to various other bacterial as well as viral as well as even fungal diseases. But the problem lies here, if anyone is of a basically opportunistic pathogen can also cause disease, okay, it may also cause disease. So in the case mutualism, we are benefited by vitamins and various other compounds, and also helps us to digest our food also. The last one, which is basically a parasitism, it's an unilateral benefit. It's an unilateral benefit to the microbe. Okay, I am giving you example of host and the microbe, human and the microbe, because we are discussing the normal human flora. Parasitism will be unilateral. It will just benefit the microbe, okay, which basically is going to cause disease, which basically is going to cause the disease. And this symbiotic association can also help us to study other competitive activities between various bacteria also. Now in this case, there are some arrows given here: harmful, beneficial, okay, and as well as the dependencies, okay. Now how to interpret this diagram, okay. Now please check here. If you know, if there is a no harm, if there is no harm, in the case of no harm, okay, you may clearly see it is on the upper side, which indicates commensalism as well as mutualism, and if there is harm, which indicates parasitism, Now moving from the dependency level, partial to the complete dependencies, okay, partial to the complete dependencies, where it will depend on the partial dependencies are basically of commensalisms, okay, and the complete ones is an mutualism, and the benefit, the last one, okay, only one will be benefited in the case of parasitism, and to the both in the case of mutualism, This is how this diagram has to be interpreted, okay. Now this one is just an diagram, okay, of the human body with and without microbiome. This is actual diagram of the visible organs of our body, but with microbiome, okay. You can see how it is distributed, okay. There are about 10 to power around 14 cells and 23,000 genes without any microbes, and 10 to power 14 million microbes, okay, with around 9 million genes, So you can have an idea, there are more number of microbial cells and even species, okay, and there are millions of genes other than the human genes in the human body, okay, millions of genes other than the human genes which are present in the body, and this whole makes up a normal functioning human body. This whole makes up a normal functioning human body, okay. So this is a diagram of an normal flora as well as the innate immune system, which basically works, okay. Now starting with the upper part of the body, okay, I'm going to just describe the innate immune systems. You must have studied in your unit 1 in the organs of immune system, okay. If you still not studied, please study unit 1 properly then. Now in the case of innate immune system, okay, why do we need it to study normal flora? Because it gives us an idea, how immune system works, and the first scenario here, I hope you can see the cursor here, is an lysosome, okay, lysosome in tears, which basically kills gram positive bacteria. It has an bactericidal activity on the gram positive bacteria. Okay, now moving forward with the next one, removal of particles by turbinates and humidification. Removal of particles by turbinates and humidification, okay, in the nose, okay, because of the presence of mucus which is present in the nose, okay, it prevents the bacteria, virus, or any fungal spores to further go forward into the respiratory system. And next comes mucus and cilia capture organisms and remove them, in this case again in the respiratory system. How? This is done by the cilia beating. This is done by the cilia beating present in the respiratory tract and also by the mucus. Okay. For example, when you cough, okay, when there is intensive cilia beating, this leads to coughing. Okay, this leads to the coughing, and with the coughing out, okay, bacteria or any other microbes are also coughed out of the body. Okay, next one, skin, which is basically a physical barrier. Skin, which is basically a physical barrier. Stomach, next comes stomach. As you all know, the stomach basically produces an acid, okay, which decreases the pH by about 2, okay, which decreases the pH by about 2, and this pH can also kill the microbes which are basically taken up with the food, okay. But in general terms, the people say that you should not drink the water after eating. Okay, if you want to drink water, you can drink the water after half an hour. Okay, why? The reason is very simple. Okay, the acid which is produced by the stomach, okay, will get diluted, and due to which the pH will increase instead of decreasing the pH. The pH of the stomach will increase, and there are chances, due to the increase in the pH, many of the microbes which may be ingested with the food may also further pass to the intestine, and in some cases they are also pathogens also. Some of them are also pathogens which can infect our body. Okay, next one, many fatty acids which are consumed by us can also inhibit the many bacteria. Okay, next one is a competition and the toxic products which are produced by the intestinal bacteria, okay. And how? For example, some of them produce siderophores, some can also produce colicins, okay, and various other factors which are being produced by the normal flora of our intestine. Okay, now flushing action of urine removes organism. Okay, the flushing of the urine, okay, basically removes the organisms. Okay, okay. And the low vaginal pH in the vagina of the female, okay, in the female reproductive organs, low vaginal pH from the lactobacilli prevents colonization of the pathogens. Yes, most of the bacteria or microbes cannot grow at a lower pH. They will not be able to grow. But one such example which can grow, and it's a common pathogen of the female, okay, it's a Candida species, okay, which can grow at low pH and cause an infection in the vagina also. Okay, and as a whole body, the other mechanisms which we have studied in detail are the molecular and cellular defense mechanisms, pattern of recognition, molecules, TLRs, neutrophils, as well as the macrophages. Now starting with the normal flora of the nasopharynx, which includes streptococci, Haemophilus, Neisseria species, mixed anaerobes, Candida, and even actinomyces. Moving towards the skin, which includes Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Corynebacterium, Propionibacterium, as well as the yeast. Okay, but this position always varies. Some of them will be common one also. In the upper bowl, which contains basically Enterobacteriaceae, Enterococci, Candida species. In the lower bowl contains bacteroids, Bifidobacterium, Clostridium, and Streptococci. In the vagina, it contains maximum population is of Lactobacilli. Okay, next comes Streptococci, next comes Corynebacteria, next Candida, Actinomyces, and Mycoplasma hominis. Now moving forward with the another general diagram, if you want to draw, okay, if the question is asked in the 5 marks, if you want to draw the diagram, okay, this is purely for you. In the nose and pharynx, again in more detail now, Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus epidermidis, Brahmanla, Catarrhalis, and Haemophilus influenzae. In the oropharynx, okay, which basically connects mouth and the nose, it contains Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus epidermidis, diphtherioids, Brahmanla, Catarrhalis, Haemophilus, as well as pneumococci. Okay. Next comes here in the colon. Okay, in the colon contains the species of bacteroids, Fusobacterium, Clostridium, but these Clostridium are generally non-pathogenic. Okay, Lactobacilli, Escherichia, Proteus, Klebsiella, Enterobacter, Peptostreptococcus, as well as the Candida albicans. Again in the vagina, same Lactobacilli, Enterococcus, Candida albicans, and anaerobes. And the Candida albicans is basically an opportunistic pathogen also. Okay, it's an opportunistic pathogen. Okay, now starting with the normal flora stabilization. Okay, what are the parameters or what are the conditions, and how basically different types of bacteria basically work out and stabilize the human system. Okay, human biological system, and what are the other factors and how they are basically involved in the stabilization of the normal flora. Okay, as we discussed in the maternal factors and other environmental factors. Okay, now starting with the maternal factors, which are going to be directly involved in the diversity as well as the stabilization of the newborn child. Okay, for example, whether the mother has any vaginal infection, what is the structure of the gut microbiota of the mother, as well as if she has any of the infections also, and yes, other infections, it will lead to the microbiota. Okay, microdiversity of the microbiota also. Okay, so during the birth, as these maternal factors are going to first affect to add the diversity of the microbiota to the child. Okay, now starting, okay, with the birth. Okay, if there is a normal delivery, which is basically also known as vaginal delivery, okay, of the child, normally the lactobacillus will be first involved for the colonization in the child. Okay, lactobacillus will be first involved in the colonization of the child. Okay, now if there is a cesarean delivery, okay, you all know what is cesarean delivery. Okay, in that case, because the child comes out around the skin, okay, where a cesarean is need to be done, okay, it's not a normal delivery. So the bacteria which are involved will be Staphylococcus and Propionibacterium, as these two both are the normal flora. Okay, these two are the normal flora of the human skin. Okay, now moving forward with the infant stage less than 1 year. Okay, the child will consume milk. Okay, will consume milk, and from the milk, okay, it may add bifidobacterium or lactobacillus, even Veillonella. Okay, and when a solid food is introduced, it adds bacteriod species as well as the family Clostridiales, Okay, at the same time, the various other postnatal factors are also going to affect. Okay, now due to some other reason, if the child gets diseased, okay, the doctor will give him antibiotics, which leads to microbiota depletion from the breastfeeding. As we discussed right now, bifidobacterium and lactobacillus will be added to the microbiota of the infant. And next comes the host genetics. Okay, Christianeliaceae family, from the Christianeliaceae family, again the bacteria will be added. And last one will be the environmental conditions, and what is the environment around the child. Okay, around the child. And finally, after around 1 to 3 years, okay, at the start of the 4 to 5 years, the normal flora will get stabilized in the child. And now as the child will move forward, more number of normal flora will be added, which we had discussed in the last lecture. Okay, now normal flora of skin basically. Okay, I'm not going to discuss this diagram in more detail, but I hope you remember the skin structure. So in order to repeat, show you the diagram. Okay, just what are receptors, and just give you an idea about the structure of the skin. Okay, now starting with the skin structures, the first layer is basically epidermis. Next layer comes, it's an dermis, and next one is an hypodermis. Okay, so at this point, where sweat pores are present, which are connected with the sweat gland, which are responsible for the sweating. Okay, now which next comes a lymph vessel also. Okay, blood vessels, okay, such as arteries, veins, etc. Okay, and a fatty tissue here. Okay, now there is another a hair follicle, from where hair of the skin comes out, and also there is a nose, okay, which is directly connected with the central nervous system. And along with the hair, there is one gland which is an important one, which is an sebaceous gland. Okay, now moving forward with the skin, there are several factors of the skin, which are basically natural factors which affect the normal flora of the skin. One such factor is basically dryness. Okay, is basically dryness. Okay, and as you already know, the water activity, okay, also known as AW in a short, okay, we have studied in your semester 4. Okay, a bacteria basically requires a water activity of around 0.9, okay, requires a minimum water activity of 0.9, whereas some of the fungi requires water activity of 0.8. Okay, similarly, which is the water activity is directly related to the water content. Okay, if our skin is dry, okay, there are less chances that the bacteria would be able if there are less chances bacteria would be able to grow. Okay, because dry surface of the skin basically inhibits the growth of the bacteria, okay, but the same condition, if a fungal spore is involved, okay, which basically may lead to a growth of fungi also, okay, it may also lead to a growth of fungi also. But the problem is, okay, generally the fungal growth is inhibited by the normal flora of the skin. Okay, so the growth of the fungi is basically inhibited by the normal flora of our skin. Okay, but when we are discussing this condition, which is basically of a dryness, okay, which is basically of a dryness in our present condition under COVID-19 condition, okay, when we are frequently using sanitizers which contains alcohols, okay, and one of the almost all of you, okay, even myself, okay, will be using sanitizers as a preventive measure for the COVID. Okay, but the problem comes due to the excess use of alcohols, because as you all know, alcohol have a bactericidal effect. Okay, alcohols have a bactericidal effect, which leads to depletion of our normal microbial biota, okay, due to which there are chances, and not the chances, just the higher chances of the fungal infection. There are higher chances of the fungal infections. Okay, and another main reason, due to excessive use of alcohols also, dryness of the skin also increases. Okay, now second condition, which is basically of a low pH, skin basically, as you all know, has a normal pH of around 3 to 5, but in the moist regions, okay, of the skin, for example, the skin near the nose, near the mouth, okay, and near the hairs, okay, and some of the other parts also where the region is moist, okay, in that regions normally the pH is generally higher, okay, and normally the pH of the skin is low, which is due to the part of lactic or various other acids which are being produced by the normal skin. Okay, again you may have a question, as there is low pH, there are chances that the pathogenic fungi may attack. Yes, it may attack, but the problem is the normal flora which are going to produce inhibitory substances against the other microbiota. Okay, now comes the inhibitory substances which are naturally present in our skin. Several bactericidal and bacteriostatic compounds which occur in skin. For example, sweat glands secrete lysozymes. Sweat gland secretes lysozyme, an enzyme that destroys bacterial cell walls. An enzyme that destroys bacterial cell walls. Okay. Now second comes a sebaceous glands. And second comes sebaceous glands which secretes complex lipids and which may be partially degraded by some bacteria such as Propionibacterium acnes, resulting in a long chain fatty acids. Example, oleic acid, which are highly toxic to the other bacteria. And this complex which is being secreted by the sebaceous gland is also known as sebum. Okay, which contains basically complex lipids. Okay, but if any of due to whatever the reason, whatever the condition, okay, if this bacterium Propionibacterium acnes gets involved with the sebaceous gland directly, there are chances that the growth of Propionibacterium increases, which may lead to infection also. Okay, now moving forward with the what are the normal flora of microbial flora of the skin. Okay, sebaceous skin, moist skin, and dry skin. Most of them are actinobacteria, some of them are proteobacteria. Okay, some are bacterioids. Gram negative includes basically bacterioids and proteobacteria. Analysis of the skin of the microbiome from 10 healthy human volunteers detected around 19 bacterial phyla and 4 phyla were the predominant, and the composite populations of bacteria from the same volunteer divided according to the sebaceous, moist, and dry skin environments, where you can clearly see the propionibacteria, okay, as it is able to use the sebum which is being produced by the sebaceous glands. Okay, the population of the propionibacteria will be higher in the sebaceous glands. Next comes the staphylococci, next comes the corynebacterium, next comes beta proteobacteria, next flavobacterials, and rest are the other bacteria. Now towards the moist skin, where corynebacterium basically leads, next staphylococcus, next beta proteobacteria, next propionibacteria, next flavobacterials. Okay, in the dry skin, beta proteobacteria, next comes corynebacteria, next flavobacterials, next propionibacteria, and next flavobacteria. Okay, and next comes the other rest of the bacteria. Okay, so other examples. Okay, if you want to study, if you want to draw a diagram, you can draw this diagram. It's in black and white, and which are also involved in normal microbial flora of the skin. Okay, Staphylococcus epidermidis, Staphylococcus hominis, Staphylococcus hemolyticus, Staphylococcus capetis, Staphylococcus pyogenes, Micrococcus luteus, Corynebacterium xerosis, and Peptostreptococcus Okay, these are the basically regular bacteria which are involved in the normal flora of the skin. Okay, I'm ending the lecture now. Everyone, please join our WebEx session and please comment present, sir. Please comment present, sir, for your attendance. Okay, and please join our WebEx session